This is the Superstar Diaries podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Superstar Diaries with our fellow label owner, producer, DJ, and superstar Anthony Attalla. Welcome.
What up, man?
What up, everybody?
Chicago in
Good
the
to see you
house.
guys again. Right, Chicago. Beautiful winter in Chicago right now.
Yeah. So, we're just going to jump right into it. I've been watching you on social media, and it looks like you've been everywhere. So you just kind of tell us what you've been up to for the last, 3 months?
Yeah, I just actually on Monday this week, so a couple of days ago, I just got back home. Finally, I'd been gone about 50 out of 60 days. Did some North America stuff. Was over in Europe for a couple weeks. Came back for some USA stuff. See my family for the holiday. Out to Vegas for New Year's, and then I was in Thailand for 3 weeks. Came home for 48 hours, and then went straight to Groove Cruise. So, it was a run. I was in like 16 cities, 8 countries.
How many miles did you log in the last 90 days?
I don't know, man. I don't even know. I know I put a couple million on for sure, but yeah, it was a whirlwind. That's kind of the extreme. I think you guys know, prefer to do the gone on the weekends, home during the week. But going on those trips is fun. I had 4 trips to Europe this year, 2 trips to Asia, and they're all awesome. I just try to make sure that I spend time when I'm out there in between the gigs. I'm sure you guys do too, to absorb the culture, absorb the food, the people, the culture, the architecture, the nature, do some hiking if I can, and make it, something that's not just about the music, but about your cultural enrichment as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's go back to so you said you were in Vegas for New Year's Eve. So kind of tell us about that. Tell us about the gig on New Year's Eve, and then I'm also a big New Year's resolution type of guy. So it's always the end of the year is always a good time to reflect on kind of what you killed in the past year, and what 2025 kind of is going to look like for you, and kind of what music you did you play right at midnight, and what track? I always want to know, what track did you play at midnight if you were.
What's interesting about me in Vegas is I would say it's one of my bigger markets as far as the culture and the vibe and the following. The tribe, I guess, that built over time. I started it very underground, playing techno parties with Tom Svass, longtime friend of mine, back in 2010, 11. And then when I started to kind of have this ascension and was getting championed at the time by Swedish House Mafia and Axwell and those guys, it catapulted me to start playing more of the popular clubs. They're the Marquees, the Daylight, all that kind of stuff. And I liked it, but playing for all the transients, and it wasn't really my vibe. And so I kind of made a shift back in 15, 16, and went back underground and started playing all the after hour clubs there, and kind of recreated myself in Vegas and played for the locals. And so now I strictly play after hours there, which I absolutely love. And to ask the question, I don't go on at midnight. I go on at 2 a.m., play 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. But I love those. I love those, the witching hours, and I love the vibe. I think it's raw. The locals there, big local support system there, and I don't know. For me, I appreciate playing for them more so than maybe just the tourists that are there, where you're just kind of the background noise. I mean, it's not anything against the tourists, but I prefer playing to a crowd that's more into the music and more focused on the music specifically.
So you played 5 hours on New Year's?
Yeah, I think 5.5 actually. I think 5.5 actually. I actually went on a little.
What would you say your average set length is?
It depends. It depends on the city. So if you have your I call them mid-major cities. Your 2 a.m. cities. Everything's shut down at 2. Those cities, it's midnight to 2.
Yeah.
But any city that goes later than 2, I'm playing typically 3 to 5 hours, 3 hour minimum. Usually around 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, I just got off Groove Cruise, and I do a marathon set on there annually. That's a 7-hour set.
So I saw a lot of videos of the Groove Cruise thing. I mean, you posted anybody? I mean, I probably saw that place looked insane. And I was talking to Jason when he just got back, Bookham, because I was just congratulating him on all the success. Because I mean, that Groove Cruise was insane, right?
Yeah, it was 6,700 people.
Wow.
I started on Groove Cruise with them a long time ago when it was much more boutique and bespoke, however you want to say it. When I did my first Groove Cruise, we didn't even have the whole boat. It was 500 people, and they would have to section off areas for us to play, and there'd be families, that we'd have to be intermingling with, which would create an interesting dynamic, after the parties were done or late night. But it was fun, and I saw it build to the point where I think 2013 was the first year they had the whole boat. And that was the same year that I created the after hours. I was going to early BPM festivals in 11, 12, 13, and watching those sunrise sets the sunrise events that they would happen out on the beach. And they were really tapping into all the natural production, that was sure there were the lights and there were the dancers, but what's better than the ocean, stars, the sun, the moon? And, having an epiphany on one of those sunrise sets, I asked Jason, man, let me do an after hours party. We have everything we need here. Let's find a place in the top of the boat, the back deck, and tap into the ocean and the sun and the moon and watch the sunrise come up. And he finally let me do it in 2013, and it ended up being a great party. And I said, do it again and again and again and again. And so I helped curate these after hours events on Groove Cruise, and now they become some of the biggest parties on the boat.
Yeah, it's what it looked like. It's what it looked like from everything I saw. I mean, it looked that back thing you had. I mean, that looked like thousands of people compared to like the hundreds I would see on other Groove Cruises.
It was, and it's totally feral too. I mean, it's just people are, I play with a lot of emotion. I play with a lot of energy, but when you have a crowd that has a lot of emotion, a lot of energy, it becomes this symbiotic energy exchange, where everyone is just kind of dancing and flowing in this beautiful homogenous level. And people comment to me a lot like, man, you got a lot of energy behind the decks. And I'm like, well, I was on the dance floor before I was ever in the DJ booth.
Yeah. You feed off the energy a lot. You feed off the crowd though. I can see it in your eyes and stuff when I've seen you perform.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's all natural. It's all organic. It's not choreographed or anything like that. I'm just up there having a blast with everyone else. It's just we're the curators, right?
So how long did it take them for they have to tell you to stop? Like, bro, you've been up here for 9 hours. You got to stop. We got to clean this place up or put new water in.
No, because then we have people going after me. It's very regimented and structured. But I just had this conversation with a group of friends that were on the LA 2008 group cruise. 2018 group cruise, and that one it was just me playing. And there wasn't a party. It was on the main pool deck, and there wasn't a party until like noon or like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. the next day. And I started midnight. It was supposed to go midnight to like 6, 7. And I just kept playing and played like a 10-hour set. And it was like 10 a.m. and they came up and they're like, it was still a huge crowd. Yeah. And they came up and like, it's time to wrap it up, dude. I'm like, look at all these people here dancing. They're like, yeah, we gotta turn it over and start to set up for the next. So that was kind of a story similar to that. But
yeah, going back to like, in America, we don't really get to see the sunrise. I'm sure on those boats when the sun's coming up, that's a pretty magical time, I would think.
It's the best, especially when you have a complete 180 or larger panorama and periphery of the whole ocean. Sometimes when we see sunrises, we see them here, we see them there, but to just look out and see nothing but, an endless landscape of water with the sun coming up over it, there's just a different vibe about it.
The ocean just like breeds life and creativity too. I just feel like my resting heart rate goes down 10 BPM when I'm by the beach,
Yeah, for sure. But maybe not on these parties because the BPM.
Yeah, you're right. What is the BPM you're playing at these after hours? I mean, you go up and down in energy, or
I do a gradual ascension. Rarely do I go back down once I've built up. So I'm playing for so long that it's a story. You're basically essentially metaphorically writing a book. You're being an author. You're telling a story. You're weaving a soundscape, and stories have lots of peaks and lots of valleys and lots of dips and turns and character building. And so I'll always start very housey, very sexy, more staccato rhythms, bass-driven rhythms, lots of vocals, because no offense, but men are cavemen. You gotta get the ladies on the floor first, and the men will follow. So I want to create a very, very sexy soundscape for women and get them on the floor, and then kind of create this whole vibe where everyone is extrapolating off of each other's energy. Build it up there into tech house, build up into some harder hitting beats, and the end of the set, I mean, I'm playing some pretty some pretty hefty techno, but not dronal dark techno.
Yeah.
More of like a very like sinuous techno with like rolling bass lines. And then I would say the last hour 45 minutes going into more melodic, more of that uplifting kind of like here's the end, here's the prestige, it's the end, it's the final few chapters where everything's kind of coming together and culminating and really trying to like pull that emotion out. So,
are you dropping many classics in these sets, or are you playing mostly new music?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a mix. It's an amalgamation of both. I will drop some classics here and there. I think classics maybe a little bit more towards the end, but I'm trying to be very, very edgy. I mean, especially this Groove Cruise more than any. When you're playing alone, you can play whatever you want. But when you're on a festival like that, there's a lot of other artists there, and this Groove Cruise more than any had the most underground, whatever that means, artists than any other Groove Cruise. So they had a lot of techno, a lot of underground artists, a lot of tech house artists, and so it takes a lot of preparation. Not to sound too businessy, but perfect preparation prevents piss poor performance, and so you got to prepare for the fact that that other people are going to be probably playing a lot of the same tracks, even if there are a lot of underground. So I spent a lot of time preparing for it, preparing, but like, I'm not going to play that, even if I might play that in a club gig. I'm not going to play that because I want to play a set where everyone's like,
what the hell is that? Yeah. Right? I mean, Brad and I would do that. Brad and I would do that aggressively. Like if we were playing a festival, you got to really think about what every other DJ is going to play at that festival. You know what I mean? Like if Cascade's on the lineup, you can't play any Cascade song or anything he's going to touch. TS, all those guys, you start whittling it down to really kind of, finding grooves that you think nobody else is going to touch.
Yeah, because you want to be, let's just be honest, you want to be unique.
Yeah.
If you're unique and you combine that with talent and energy and you formulate it and you mold it all together, you're going to stand out. Oh. And everybody was great. Everybody played great. But I really wanted to stand out and be unique. And so I did a ton of my own edits, my ton of like just mashups and things like that, where I was taking, acapellas and putting them on other songs and preparing all that ahead of time instead of just going in and winging it. I live under the mantra that you always know if you're going to ace that exam when you walk into it, and if you're going to flunk it.
Yep.
And nervousness is a byproduct of unpreparedness. And so I don't ever want to feel nervous. There's no reason you need to feel nervous. If you prepared for the situation beforehand, there's no reason to feel nervous. Yeah. You're going to ace it. And so it all comes with that preparation. People think that when they see us play, that's our job. That's our reward. The job is everything we do at see, So
totally.
So what we like to talk a lot about what was the moment that made you kind of fall in love with the Groove Cruise? Was there a specific incident, specific track, specific landscape? Hanging out with your friends, hanging out with Jason. What kind of made you fall in love with the Groove Cruise? And then I'm going to throw that forward to say, this last set, was there a moment that just like you just kind of shake your head and be like, I can't believe I'm here at this moment,
Yeah, definitely. I know that for sure. But I would say to reverse engineer and talk, not to put the cart before the horse, but why I fell in love with Groove Cruise, honestly, is the people. Obviously, the sets were great, but I've seen it. I've seen it build over years and years and years, and it was just so much more boutique, like I said before, and it was just such a little pop up kind of set up shop. Here, now the party's here, now the party's there. Now it's much more structured. It's like an actual festival now, and God bless them. They've done an amazing job building it. But initially, it's all about the people. The vibe on it. It's the culture that Jason has built. Everyone is just leads with love. It's kind of corny as that sounds. They really do. You lose something on the boat, people turn it in. There's just you don't see any fights. You don't see any. There's just no nefarious kind of activity on there.
I mean, karma goes a long way. Yeah, it really to the energy.
Yeah, Jason's such a good dude. And worked so hard. Like it's really fun to see somebody that has a passion. Even like when we started Beatport, it was just such a small little insignificant thing that grew to be something big. And it's like you could see the passion that we had for that. The passion that Jason had. We played the Groove Cruise a couple of times, and you could just see it in his eyes. I'm a promoter by heart. And so, being able to see the vision, of what things you want it to be, the first couple times, it's always hard, and you just keep getting better and better. And before you know it, 10 years later, he's selling out 6,500.
Sell out way in advance. It's like a nice one of the bigger boats now. So
yeah, I'm sure whatever cruise line he's on is like can't wait to get Jason's, show
Yeah.
booked for the next 5 years because it's going to be sold out. They don't have to worry about it. So that's
for sure.
that's really inspiring to see like visions grow. I mean, that's one of the best things about us being in the industry so long and knowing, kind of all the key players like yourself and all the Chicago boys. Just watch them, going from very aspiring DJs to superstars and very aspiring promoters to being, doing the biggest shows in the world right now. So it's really, really a blessing from where we sit.
For sure. Yeah, Chicago is definitely a factory of artists. But I think we all it's a friendly competition. We all want each other to do great, and we also want to do great too. And I think when you surround yourself with people in that environment, you tend to see people do great things.
Yeah, you definitely want to shine, right? You're fully prepared for that set, which is always a great feeling when you're going to kill it.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so earlier you said that you were in Asia, like in the last month, right? Thailand.
Yeah.
So how different is the culture and the sets there? Is there a different spirituality? Do you perform different? Like, is it different preparation? What times do you play? A lot of people don't know what, the scene's like over there. Can you just give us a little insight?
I think traveling so much and playing so many different places all over the world in general, just to look from a macro level, really sharpens your iron in the sense that to be prepared for all different things. I mean, I don't play all different types of music, but I still am in that 30% of the pie where I like techno, I like tech house, I like house, right? And you'd be surprised places that are super close. I played a show in Milan and a show in Florence, and they're only an hour and a half train ride from each other. And Milan is pumping tech, and then Florence was all classic house. And so you really have to be prepared. In Greece, I might play a club in Greece that's more pumping and like full frontal, like hardcore dance, and then play another one that they want really, really melodic kind of Afro house. And so I love all that stuff. And so being versatile and being great at all of those really gives you a wider scope. In Thailand, there's a lot of expats there. So for as many Thai people as that are there, you have tons of Europeans, tons of Americans, tons of Australians there. And so it's a real interesting mix. It's a very even mix of people from all over the world there. And so I would say they dance the same way we dance here in the States. But I played a club in Bangkok that is kind of more swanky. And so it was house.
Yeah.
I played I think the best party in Thailand. It's called Jungle Experience. It's a 5,000 person monthly party in the middle of the jungle. And it's an actual proper monthly festival. But I mean, it's just so many people that I'm playing techno because that sound matures better over long distances. Where if you're in a small club, it's more of that staccato instead of legato sound that sounds better and sounds more pumping to them. So just being prepared for each of those types of sets.
So how much of the music that you're playing right now is from you or your label? How much of it are you getting from are you getting most of your tracks still from Beatport or from demos? And what's your breakdown of what you're playing?
I mean, yeah, yes on all levels. Yes to every question, and that it varies. I would say it depends on the type of set I'm playing, but 10 to 30% mine and my label stuff ish, maybe in that range. I mean, but then I'm doing, and even though they're not my productions, I would say a lot of my sets, my own edits. Yeah. I would say I edit 50% plus of my tracks. And
so by edit, do you mean adding stuff on top, or you just like shortening it, redoing arrangements?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Like I might have an acapella that I like on that track and make my own mashup of it. There might be tracks where I'm just like,
yeah, you hate the breakdown. Yeah. Yeah.
That one there, even these couple bars there, I'm taking it out, right?
Yeah.
And make my version of it to make the track like it's all like there's a lot of almost perfect tracks, and so I like kind of at least in my vision want to make them perfect, right?
Yeah.
And back to the Beatport question, I proudly have never pirated one track ever in my life.
All right, congratulations.
I still buy my music off Beatport. I mean, if I'm not, what am I doing? I'm sabotaging myself.
I would say we never pirated a track in our entire life either. I still keep like Apple Music, Spotify, Beatport, YouTube Music, and all that. And like people have been like, "Why do you pay for all of them?" And I'm like, "Because it's like I'm paying back my people for putting in the hard work." Like
say it's the quality.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't have time to worry about putting something stupid, some kind of malware, spyware on my computer to save $150.
Yeah.
Like, I want the best, and I want to support the artists. I mean, like I said, if not, I'm just a hypocrite. You know what I mean? I'm not supporting the industry. I'm not supporting myself and supporting my own label. So yeah, and I do try to really influx my sets with a lot of unreleased music as well, because then you get the whole unShazamable. Like I'll get a lot of compliments from people like, "You're one of the most unShazamable artists I've ever heard."
That's a great compliment, man. I mean, that's amazing.
But it's also frustrating if you really like that track and you don't know what it is.
It is very frustrating.
Then you gotta go to track listings and
like have our own vinyl and no one else had it, and it was like it's kind of like that vibe.
Yeah.
But of course, I'll give it to them if they ask for it. I tell people too. Other artists. I'm like, your next weapon in your set is already on your computer.
Yeah.
Doing your own crate digging of your own songs that you own, not even yours, stuff you bought from 5 years ago, 7 years ago, instead of thinking like, "Oh my God, what am I going to play?" I'm like, yo, you got thousands and thousands of tracks. Just go back and just go look at 2015, look at 2013.
Yeah.
And you start to uncover stuff that just, because it's impossible to remember it all. And you're like, holy shit, that track. And when you pull those bombs out, that might have been the track that everyone was playing that no one's playing anymore, and you pull those back out, and the set, people are like, "Oh, what was this? What was this song?" Or "I remember this song," and it creates a little bit of a nostalgic vibe.
Yeah, it's definitely fun.
Yeah. But music organization as a DJ is hard. I don't think people realize how hard it is to keep track, because you build playlists by dates, and like we would rename edits all the time. So like, Teef Schwartz Electric something, like we just changed the name to like German beep beep song, you know what I mean? Because that's how we would talk about it, especially because when you're tag teaming with somebody, we kind of have our own language and code. So then you try to find that song, or African Chant 120 BPM is one that's been in our playlist forever.
We never.
I don't even know who the artist is.
We never named tracks correctly because Shawn would do the edit in Ableton, and then we would do the same thing, make a mashup out of it, and then starting at scratch, and most of the time it's never.
It's whatever we wanted to call it.
Never right, which is kind of frustrating. Also, when you're trying to look for something, and we have 12 tracks called Diamonds, and
yeah.
Like, that's not the one I wanted. I wanted the Deep Dish Diamonds, not the Rihanna Diamonds.
Yeah. I feel you. Yeah, people don't realize cataloging and organization in general. Well, and even not just with your music, but just with your business. You're essentially a sole proprietor.
Yeah.
You're self-employed. And being organized, if you're not a naturally, well-organized individual, you have to break that habit, and you have to be well-organized. Unless you've got a team behind you, but then they cost a ton of money. Then they're just taking a part of your pie.
Yeah.
But like I was lights, I don't let anybody do my logistics. I always do all my own organization, and that's tough. That's tough for a lot of artists. Sometimes artists just want to be the artist, right? But you have to have some type of organization. Otherwise, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. You're just wasting time trying to like find things that you should find.
Yeah,
so,
I got really lucky because Shawn's that way. I mean, Shawn's very, very like organized. All of our software, all of our tracks, all of the travel. Like he was super anal about that, and it was, for me, made my life a lot better because he was so detail oriented. So I got lucky on that one because I'm a little bit more scatterbrained.
But Shawn, that's why we always click, right, Shawn?
Yeah, totally. It's real. Sometimes I think it is just selfishness that I just really want things the way that I want them, but
Yeah, and as long as I'm willing to do whatever Shawn is, which is always very selfish and in the right, like he knows what seat to pick on the plane.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if you don't know Seat Guru at this point, like even on a weird Asian airline, like I know exactly what seat I'm taking.
And as long as I was doing exactly what he was, I was always in good shape. If I was doing my own thing, then it was tough sledding.
Yeah.
Somehow it worked. You guys did great, so it worked.
So go ahead.
I just kind of wanted to go back. You talked about like the nature, the spiritual side, the hiking. I don't know if you know I've been working a lot on an ambient label the last 2 years, which is all just really enjoyable. We're making everything in Dolby Atmos, in the spatial audio, and I'm a big yogi. I do yoga, usually 3 to 4 times a week. Not very well. I still do only old man yoga, but just getting back into the production world on the Dolby Atmos side. I just want to know if you've played around with it. In ambient, it's a lot easier than it is in dance music because you're trying to make an immersive soundscape all the time. But I wondered if where you are on the technology spectrum of producing, and do you know much about what's going on with Dolby Atmos?
So interestingly enough, when I played in Vegas on New Year's, there's a studio there that they did. They have a radio show there in Vegas. It's like 24-hour dance music, and they did an interview with me. And they have a studio attached to the radio studio. It's this one. It's a whole little compound, and they have Dolby Atmos there. They do Dolby Atmos recording there. And I got to real briefly, we were on a time schedule, but I only got to check it out for a few minutes, but it was so dope. It was so cool. It was really, really, really interesting, the technology behind it.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's like I said, for ambient music, I couldn't imagine listening to ambient without it right now because I got the whole setup at my house, and sitting with the engineers in the studio is just a really fun experience. But there hasn't been that many dance tracks that I think of. I mean, a lot of producers now are doing mixes in it. But until a club and you can actually play it back in an immersive environment, it's not as enjoyable. But the Sonos, in my house with the Apple TV is pretty
I can only imagine.
pretty mind blowing. But whoever I'm talking to, I'm always like, hey, make sure you keep your eyes out on this. The engineering tactics are different. We do the spatial audio or the Dolby Atmos mix, which is technically spatial audio, and the master at the same time. We do the spatial first, and then we do the stereo mix after that. So you do the mastering, collectively. But I just always say, just keep your eyes on it because it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I wish more. I mean, the one drawback with most clubs is, and you guys know this better than anyone, sometimes they don't, not all, some clubs go great with sound, but sometimes clubs spend all the money on all the accoutrements of the club and get I don't want to say cheap, but they do only what's necessary with the sound. And so we've got to walk into different types of sound environments, all the time. Very few places will have something where you can hear the scope of how amazing Dolby Atmos actually is. In fact, a lot of clubs, even when I produce, I go back and forth from stereo to mono because a lot of clubs will still have monophonic sound in it. Yeah. And so that's one of the things with my mixing is to make sure that, because a lot of times things sound great in stereo and then you go play them in a monophonic and you're like, why does that not sound the same? So switching back and forth between stereo and mono when you're doing your mix is a very essential final mix down tactics, or even while you're producing.
I think that's why I think we're so interested in it, is because it's kind of future proof now, because within the metadata of the Atmos file, it will be able to read if it's 5.1, if it's 9.1, if it's stereo, if it's mono, and we'll always play back the best playback, that is, I think, the reason why our studio, at Side 3 here in Denver, why they invested so much into it is because as this progresses, it is going to be future proof. Before, if you did a mix in 5.1 and you couldn't play it back in 5.1, there would be no audio in the front. And so, even we had that issue with Beta because it was a 5.1 system and you couldn't really do any mixes in it. Or that's why another reason why I really like it is because it'll always play it back in the best format. Those files are ginormous. They're about 5x bigger than a regular WAV file, but that's part of the intrigue with it, is making sure no matter what it is, if you have Beats by Dre headphones or you have Apple Air Maxes that play spatial, they'll always play the best form. So, that's another reason why I'm pretty invested into that technology.
That's awesome, man.
So, on your travels, did you have any spiritual journeys or hikes that were super monumental? And I'm assuming you did. So when you tell us about those, what was the soundtrack you were listening to on that? Was it like a chill out song, or was it like techno, or was it Whitney Houston?
Okay, so that's actually funny. You bring up an interesting topic between me and my friends. No music on the trail. No music on the trail.
Okay. No, all right. So that's your time alone. That's your time in your head. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't listen. This is kind of psycho, but it's actually how I learned how to save my ears. I'm in either in clubs or in the studio so much that places that you would have a natural inclination to listen to music, your car, the gym, places like that, I'm in complete silence. I'll drive now 4 or 5 hours in complete silence.
No audiobooks, no podcast, nothing.
Just driving in silence.
Just Anthony in his head. What are you thinking about then?
Initially it was weird, and now I'm just so used to it. I'm just thinking, just kind of thinking. Occasionally I'll listen to some like history podcasts and things like that, some educational stuff. But yeah, rarely any music. I'm not saying that I'm completely impervious to putting on a track here or there, but for the most part, it's in complete silence. No music in the gym. Ear pods are really fuck your ears up. The more sensitive your ears are, the less productive you're going to be in the studio. The less in tune you're going to be during your sets. And so, like, even I remember, not to digress here, but before my 7-hour set on or my marathon set on Groove Cruise, I was hanging out during the day and trying to kind of like stay away from like too many events and stuff because I didn't want to like dumb my ears down. But as far as the nature stuff goes, yeah, I mean, honestly, between you and I, nature is the most important relationship in my life. Of course, my family, but it's a very, very, very important part of my life. It balances me out. Nature for me is the only thing in this universe that can make me feel so small and so alive at the same time. I mean, it's honestly my form of therapy. Some people go sit on a couch and talk to a therapist. I just go hiking. So the trips that I was around, sometimes you can do some city hiking. Like right now is not the best time to actually like go on some hikes. So when I was in Europe, it was more exploring the cities, exploring all the architecture. When I was in Thailand, it was more, being on the beaches, doing stuff in the water, taking boats out to, visiting different islands, snorkeling and things of that nature. So, but yeah, it's important. I think that I tell people all the time, I think we should all have a more intense and important relationship with nature. I feel like the world would be a much better place, the more connected we are with it.
I totally agree. It's funny because I'm very similar to you. When I'm at my house, I don't listen to music very much. And when I'm at the gym, I don't listen to music.
Yeah, he also keeps no booze in his house.
Yeah.
He's like, I have a nightclub for my friends to drink in. If you come to my house, you have to like bring a bottle of wine to dinner.
Yeah, I don't. Same thing. It's like we've been in such loud environments our entire life. The studio, we have to be so precise that I enjoy the silence. So I'm right there. I'm right there with you.
I swear I do too. I definitely do. I definitely have booze in my house, but just wine. I don't really keep alcohol.
I hear you actually have a pretty nice wine collection. I need to get out there and drink some of it.
I do. It's taken years, but definitely built. In fact, I kind of truncated myself. I was like, you got to stop collecting wine. That's my toxic My toxic trait is thinking I need more wine, and not in the sense that I like feel like I need to drink it. I just feel like I need to be collecting more constantly. And I'm like, dude, you have enough. We live in an apartment. You're running out of. When you start taking stuff out of your closet so you can store wine for the future, it's like man stops.
Yeah, so. I think it's pretty funny. We just started talking about the wine, and my toxic trait is my shoes. And so, just for you, I wore these Jordan 11s for you, navy velvet. So, just
are you one of those guys that just has shoe boxes and like shoes that you haven't worn all in your closet?
Yeah, we talked about this on the last episode, but I like to buy the shoes or not wear them for a year because I don't like it when other people have the same shoes I do, and I'm like a Jordan guy, so
he wants to be the most unshazamable shoes possible.
So whenever there's a Jordan drop, there's only X amount of ones, and most people wear them right away. So I have the discipline, like you guys with your wine, to get them, leave them in the box for a year or two, and then start wearing them. But these ones were specifically for you.
I love it. It's like it'd be like you buying going back to the music. It'd be like you buying the cool tracks right now and then not playing them for another 2 years and bringing them back out.
So I started to do that. I think I need to dive back a little more now. And I want to go back through some other stuff. I think you inspired me to really go look for and it's almost fun to go look for genres because we would buy, when we were touring nonstop, we were playing a little bit more commercial than you've ever played. But we would always buy the underground songs too because we loved them and we'd listen to them or sometimes use the beats of them. So going back now and trying to find some of those other genres that we'd purchased all across the years is awesome.
Yeah, we could definitely play a techno set with our old stuff, but we'd always throw cheesy vocals on top of every one of them.
Yeah.
But that was kind of, our style. But we had much more proper beats than I think people realized.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Now the industry's just gone genre crazy now. It's like
there's like 97 Afro house genres. On your piano or whatever it is, like, what is that?
I know, every infinitesimal thought that they can come up with a genre, and then in each genre that it's even broken down into even these further microcosms.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we had to have an argument to add one genre to Beatport. It took us like 7 months.
Yeah, it was hard, but I definitely remember the German office. Ronnie was definitely the first person that came up with melodic techno, and it was really funny because he was very, very German. We were at the Beatport party, and he didn't really like house music, and I really liked house, and Milk and Sugar were playing, and he was just grooving, and I was like,
this is house.
I was like, Ronnie, you don't listen to house. And he's like, it's Milk and Sugar. Great. He's like, oh no, this isn't house. This is melodic techno. This is probably 2008, 9, somewhere around there. And I was like, so I give Ronnie Krieger the hat tip of melodic techno, which really is house.
We got to get him on the show and have a nice conversation with him.
I mean, musically, he was probably as smart of a guy as we've ever been around.
Oh no, he was the guy that brought all the German techno to Beatport. So all the Tief Schwartz, all of the Ellen Alien, all of the Book of Shade stuff. That was the reason that Beatport had all that stuff. Yeah, Get Physical, when that was the #1 label on Beatport.
Yeah, I mean, Richie Houghton and John had a lot to do with that too. But we can't give Ronnie all the credit. But but yeah, he was definitely very helpful for getting those German labels, which at that time was really, really important to us.
So
for sure.
Since we started kind of talking about Beatport, I did want to ask a little bit about the label, what you got going on with the label. Any new up and coming artists you guys got signed? How do you go out and get remixes? I saw you got that Max Styler remix. Obviously, he's super hot in the scene right now. So can you just give people a little insight on how you run, your label manager hat?
Well, you know what? It's in any form of business, it comes down to trust and relationships. Trust and relationships is the foundation for any pyramid that you build. The foundation has to start with that. And it's about meeting people. I mean, I met Max when he wasn't even known, I guess. And first and foremost, I will only work with people that I find have good heart, good soul, good mind. I don't even have the capacity to work with people that I don't find are good human beings. Time is my most precious commodity, and I'm not going to waste it on someone that I don't feel has a moral compass in line as a good person. I met Max, and I was just like, the greatest guy. I mean, most people just know him for what an unbelievable producer he is, but he's just an awesome human being. And I could tell that he was different. I could tell he was different with his productions. And I just told him, I said, man, I'm going to try to get as many people as I can to hear you. And I started putting him on events. I just had a conversation last night with friends of mine, and I put him on one of my incorrect yacht parties. For everyone that doesn't know, I do a couple of yacht parties as label events every summer in Chicago on a yacht, and they're incredibly popular. They always sell out. And
how many people you fit on those?
Sorry?
How big is the yacht?
It's 450 people.
Oh, cool. Big.
And we do and we do 2 of them, then an after party, and they become legendary. Half the people that come on them are from outside of Chicago. People fly in from all of the United States to come to these. But I put Max on one in 2021, June 2021, and I had everybody asking me, who's Max Styler? Who's Max Styler? And it was one of the hardest ones to sell, believe it or not. And I was like, just wait.
Yeah.
I'm like, the joke's going to be on you guys. I'm like, this guy's going to literally be one of the biggest artists in the world. And I'm so proud of him. I mean, it's hard work. He's got that extra talent, that special talent that sets him apart from everyone. And he combines it with just being a great person and a great performer. So it could be happier for him. As far as the label goes, I honestly, as many demos as I get, and I do try to listen to every single one of them. I like to, the label now is established enough where I like to pick who I want on the label, and so I'll reach out to people, develop relationships with them. Fortunately now I don't have to try to convince them or sell them on the label. The label's gotten big enough and known enough all over the world that if I reach out, typically I'll be able to get demos from somebody I like. But I also listen to all the demos that get sent in too, because you want to be able to find that next guy. You want to be able to find that next talent that you're able to cultivate and kind of build up and give a foundation for them to be able to express themselves. It's a lot. I mean, with the popularity of any label, the more people want to be on it. So it's a lot to filter through. But we've got a ton of great releases coming up. Our next release is from a Italian guy that's similar to Max. His name's Adapter. He's released on a lot of big labels now and has that similar like big room kind of tech crossover indie sound. And then we have releases coming out from Freak On, who's a big up and coming producer from the West Coast. Gallo. Who else is Carlo Leo? Those are our next releases. I'd have to look at the release schedule to tell you what's coming out. But
do you have a schedule for 2025? Do you want to put out 20 tracks this year, or do you just kind of wing it what you feel,
No.
or do you have goals?
No. Me personally, or for the label?
For the label.
For the label, it's generally on a every 3 week period. I tell people all the time, at least when your label gets established, nobody goes on Beatport and looks at the release dates. They look at the quality of the music and who's releasing on your label. No one goes, well, they only release once a month or every 3 weeks. No one does that. They look at the quality of the label. And I think the problem is with some of these labels, they get big, is that think that they push out too much music, too much filler, especially when an underground label gets purchased, which is now very in vogue, by a major, by Warner, by Sony, so on and so forth, is that they want volume, because it's about how much money they can make. For me, I kept the label bespoke. I've kept it underground. I've kept it about putting out quality music. So I'd say about every three weeks. There are times, because I still run the label by myself, that I have to put it on pause. This whole last 2 month stretch, I had to put the label on pause for a month and a half, just because I don't want to half-ass it for what it's worth. So I pushed our release schedule just until I was off tour. Now that I'm back on a regular schedule and that I'm kind of home during the week, on the weekends, I can manage the label better. So yeah, so there's no set bar that I feel like that I need to adhere to make the label great. The music speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great label. Like, yeah, congratulations.
Thanks,
it's very current. The mastering is phenomenal.
All the art looks really nice as well.
So we're
I curate all that myself too. Yeah,
it's a really
I do it all. I don't do the mastering. We hire other people to do the mastering and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's all about, I came from an advertising background, so it's about the aesthetic and the presence of it. It's not just about the music, but it's about the art. When you tap into multiple sensory outputs, the retention increases fourfold. And so I always try to make it about that.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, so keep it up. And the music is fire, so big fan of what you guys are doing. I guess what you are doing.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say something. You kicked me before, so
you're doing the ice, and it gets.
Well, he literally kicked me and looked at me, and I was like, are you gonna say something, or are you just gonna just look at me?"
No, I was kicking you because when you close your eye and it interrupts him.
Oh, okay.
So trying to be a good host.
I want for my own personal edification, that moment there where you guys just stared at each other, just as a screenshot.
Perfect. That's how I want you to remember us for the day. Yeah.
Eric Rich here, screen networking.
More you missed that I kicked him. We have that type of relationship that we can kick each other. Yeah. It's more like brothers.
So, how much do you think that the technology has changed how you perform as a person? Like the new CDJs and that new crazy ass mixer are mental compared to where we started from the first CDJs or vinyl or anything like that. And I know you said you do a lot of edits. Like, how does that affect your performance? Like, Do you feel like it gives you more opportunity? Do you like 6 CDJs? Do you use all 4?
So I started on vinyl. I mean, so I still at heart have that raw, straightforward. I'm a DJ, when I perform. And God bless everybody that's doing they're utilizing everything that's available to them. Like James Hype, for example, like awesome. Like, go, dude, that's badass. I just come from a vinyl background, and I feel like how I tell my story is the most important thing. And I take off quantization. There's no sync. There's no master tempo. I play raw. And that's just me, though. I'm not saying that I'm not judging anyone else at how they do it. I vacillate back and forth between loving the proliferation of technology and having a little bit of disdain for it. Maybe that means I'm becoming like, a grumpier old guy. I don't know what that means, but
we're all becoming grumpy old guys.
Yeah. But we come from a time where being a DJ took a lot of talent, and it was looked at like, oh my gosh, especially when we played vinyl. It was like, wow, like you know how to do this, and you know how to program and take us on this journey. And now, because of the proliferation of technology, this is my disdain side, is that anybody can overnight download a software, download Tractor, press sync, press quantize, and have a laptop up there, and they're DJing, And so, however, it's kind of like, you look at it in a positive way, Michael Jordan got everybody to want to play basketball. It didn't mean that they were all going to be Michael Jordan, but it got the masses on a critical mass scale introduced and interested in basketball. So the technology on the good side has made it easy where everyone, they're not intimidated by learning, that they can, even if it's on a quasi level, basically pick up download a software program and put in some of their favorite tracks and press a couple buttons and go, I'm a DJ.
Yeah.
And so I think that has predicated the bigger crowds and this renaissance and revolution of electronic music, especially in the United States. And so it's a little weird in the sense that, sure, sometimes I get sick of everybody being a DJ, but then again, I feel like it's good. It's also good for the industry, and it's good for the culture too. So, I have a little bit of a pendulum shift with how I think about it, but I think generally, the over-encompassing attitude is a good one. It's a good thing.
It kind of took me by surprise one day as at our Bounce Empire place, we have DJs come, and there was a pretty young kid. I think he was 18, 19, and he was playing like some W stuff, and he was playing for
he was performing.
Yeah, he was performing. And it was like 45 minutes, and we have a stage that goes up and down. It's on hydraulics. I come down, talk to him for a second. I'm like, where's your headphones? He's like, I don't need them. And I was like, you've been doing your entire set without headphones? He's like, yeah. I was like, I just kind of like, wow, I didn't even think that was possible.
Well, you just don't even want to like kind of remember what a song might sound like ever once.
He's like, no, I just look at the screen. He's like, I have it all my cue points. It's all on, I was like, I guess we've definitely entered a new era, because I didn't ever think a DJ, the essential was like at least a USB and at least your headphones.
But there's a difference then. That's like reading a story versus telling a story, I think. You know what I mean? Like he's trying to write a story. That kid just read a story back. You know what I mean? He's like, next.
Well, he was doing tons of little chops and edits.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like a freestyle, like rapper musician, just kind of winging it, but everything was synced and everything was, because he was doing, I mean, it was, not that he was James Hype, because James Hype is absolutely amazing, but he was doing tons and tons of DJ tricks, and using the CDJ 3000s at its like max capacity.
Yeah.
But I still thought it was just the no headphone thing was just kind of, like,
wow. That talent though too, and that shouldn't be discounted. It's just, I think looking at it, look, the universe doesn't operate in a linear pattern. And so we can't look at it from a linear perspective, right? We just have to, look at it from all different angles. Fundamentally, what it comes down to is, are you moving the dance floor?
Yeah.
Are you good at what you do? People enjoy it? Are you something that is digestible to people and that they want to listen to, and it makes them happy? Really, this is what it comes down to. So To be judgmental is about stuff, or say I do it one way and you do it a different way. So what's one is right and one is wrong. It's, why it is what it is.
So, we talked a little bit about, you bringing on new artists to the label and kind of helping, mentor them. So who was like the person you looked up to? Like, who was the first person that was aspirational to you, or like the first person that took you under the wings, or the first superstar that you actually became friends with? Like when you were like, holy crap, I'm next to Carl Cox or whatever it is. And he's talking to me like
Yeah, for sure. I had, I would say the first person that I listened to that I was like, that's what I want to sound like, would probably be Steve Lawler.
Okay.
Back in he had that just darker, and I don't mean evil dark, that sexy darkness to it that I went from. It coincided with a time of my life that was a dark time. We all go through those valleys of life, right? And I started listening to him at a time of my life, at this period of my life where, the proverbial shit had kind of hit the fan, and I was presented with a lot of decisions to make on the direction I was going to go in my life. And so it kind of fit the mood. It was the motif, that it was the soundtrack to how I felt. And it just felt right. And so I would say that was the time where I really shifted over into playing like whatever, I didn't even know what I was playing at that time. Just a sawed-off shotgun to having a direction. Yeah. Like, I like that. I like that sound. I like that drummy, sexy bass line sound, right?
Yeah, that Steve Lawler Lights Out was just one of, and then when he would play for us, he brought that, we had that Berlin influence of those dark German nightclubs that we would always go to, and he was the one, at the end of his set, he would turn the lights out, and it was just such a vibe with that, I just remember him with a very groovy, sexy, darker sound, but it was still very, not commercial, but very appealing to the masses, even though it was, I don't even know what genre we'd call it now. I mean, I guess it was tech house, but it was just a groovier version of it. But I remember Steve.
I'm going to go back and look up some Steve Lawler songs on the way home today.
Lights Out. I mean, I will never forget that. And, like I said, at the end of the night, his last 15 minutes, we'd kill the lights in the club. And it's just a vibe, like for real.
Yeah. Yeah, Global Underground, New Breed, Steve Lawler, double disc, and then following his Lights Out series were so awesome. And I ended up actually striking up a friendship with him later. Around like 2014, he ended up playing a bunch of my tracks. So that was kind of a come full circle moment. Funny story is I actually, Sharon was actually a really big supporter of mine. He took me on shows all over the world. Probably 14, 15 shows.
I'm going to see him and Ali tomorrow in Denver. They're doing a deep dish.
Yeah. Well, an interesting, funny story about that is I went to see Deep Dish when I was 20, 21, and had just made my first, mix CD. And of course I had it in my pocket at the club, and I ended up in VIP, and Deep Dish was playing and Ali was playing, and Shram had a break. And I went, it's such a funny story. I went to the bathroom, and Shrum comes up in the urinal next to mine, and I look over and I'm like, of course I'm having a good time. I'm not sober, right? And I look at him and I'm like, you're Shrum. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I love you, man. He's like, yeah. I'm like, I have a CD in my back pocket. If I give it to that guy, I was that guy. If I give you my CD, listen to it. He looks at me, he's like, no.
He's like, I'm peeing actually right now. I'm really at the urinal.
Dude, I was that guy. And then years later, he started playing he was playing my productions. And we ended up on a festival together in Cabo. And he, of course, didn't remember this. And he walks by me in the hall, and I'm like, hey, man, I introduced myself to him. And I'm like, I'm Anthony Attalla. He's like, I love your productions. He's like, I've been playing so many of your tracks. He's like, let's stay in touch. So we developed a friendship, and he started booking me on shows. And I never brought this up. And I'm telling you, I played New York, I played Toronto, Barcelona, London, Amsterdam, LA with him. And we're at, Off Sonar, Off Festival, right? In Barcelona every June. He books me on his party there, and we're playing there, and we're at dinner all together. And I tell this story. in front of like me and some other artists. And I'm like, and look now, I'm here playing with you. I guess that guy that tried to give you the CD, I guess he wanted out. So we had a big laugh about it. So,
that's awesome.
It was pretty funny. He was always a big supporter of mine, though.
It goes back to your preparation. You're like, you always have to be prepared. That's why I say, I say people are never lucky. I always like, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And, you were prepared with your mixed CD, even though
you didn't
take it, but you were prepared for that moment. So that's kind of my advice that I always give to younger producers or whatever. Just like, be careful, like make sure you're prepared. You finished every track. If something hits, that you're prepared to bring more music or whatever it is. And so I like how, you've been pretty consistent with your preparation from the very first thing you said when we started this conversation, and then kind of comes full circle with the urinal.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. It's funny you said that. I use that quote all the time. There's no such thing as luck. There's only preparation meeting opportunity. You don't know when the opportunity is going to present itself. So prepare all the time as if it's about to happen. I always, I tell friends all the time, if you prepare for every situation, then you'll never be surprised by any situation. And so if you take that into your sets, I mean, not to use a sports metaphor, but I'm going to use one. An NFL or an NBA coach doesn't huddle his guys up before the game and go get them. Yeah. I mean, he's got lots of different game plans. And so I always prepare for every set. And yeah, it takes a long time. And yeah, sure, you want to just kind of like sometimes rest and chill out in the week in between. But this is our work time. This is our grind time. Yeah. And so I prepare for every set in triplicate, literally in triplicate. So I have 3 different ways that I can maneuver based on what happens, the unknown circumstances that happen throughout the night.
So what is the biggest unknown circumstance you've ever run into? Like, what's the biggest like mishap, or like, I'll give you one. We were literally playing, was it Beyond Wonderland? It was, I don't know, main stage Insomniac, Orange County, 13,000 people in front of us. And we're literally standing there, and a balloon comes up from the crowd and lands on the pause button. And I look at him and he looks at me and the music just fucking stops. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And it took me a second to realize that all I had to do was hit the pause button because I didn't know how it happened. But like, that was like, you never expect that to happen. And then, the crowd kind of goes crazy because it's like you meant to do it.
Yeah. I feel you. I feel the universe has a practical joke, like an ongoing, reoccurring practical joke with me because I prepared so much that the universe, like, I'm going to throw you some curveballs that you didn't prepare for because I have this constant reoccurring situation of people unplugging stuff during my set or other DJs pulling out my USB. I'm like, there's no way that this continues to happen to anybody more than me. Like, it just happened in Thailand, and it's happened so many times. I mean, whether the DJ's sober, not sober, whatever. Like, I mean, I've had so many situations of DJs going under the booth, and then all of a sudden everything's like going out. I'm like, again? And then everyone's like, whoa, that noise the crowd makes if the music gets shut off. Yeah. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah, I definitely think I almost grabbed somebody's USB. I just get confused. So
so did you go to the micro USB so nobody can grab it out? Where you just stick it in there and it's like put a piece of tape over it, say "Do not touch."
No. I did drop. I gotta admit though, I did pull out. It didn't stop the music, but I did take Roger Sanchez in my Incorrect party a couple of years ago because I was going on next. I thought I was being courteous. I'm one of those people that I always hand the USB of the person that played before me. I always hand it to them, right? I always make sure that they got it. I don't want anyone to lose their USB or whatever. And I'm just thinking I'm being like a good Samaritan. I took his out and the music was fine going, but I did drop it. And it went under the booth. I was like, fuck. And he had a show, like, he had to leave the next day. And it went down into some crack, like, under the booth. But they couldn't get it back. My bad. Sorry, Roger.
I was pretty happy because I mean, I love Roger. I think he's one of the great guys. But that "Get Your Shit and Go" track came back pretty hard. Was it last year? I think it was pretty fun to see that. I remember when that track came out too, and I was like, that beat is so freaking good. It had a kind of a weird vocal on it, but I don't know who redid it, but that track had a ton of resurgence. In the what was it? More of the I don't know who did that. Who did that re-edit? But I was super happy for him on that.
Oh, yeah, Roger's killing it right now, man. I mean, geez, he's having such a viable, successful career. Having longevity in this industry is so difficult. It's such a battle of attrition. Yeah. There's so many guys that are huge one day and gone the next, and it's just wild. But I always keep that kind of in the back of my mind too. That just never to get comfortable. Yeah, never get comfortable.
I mean, Roger Sanchez, Armand Van Helden are two of my all-time favorites. Like, I mean, the music
legends.
I still listen to their stuff all the time, and it still sounds phenomenal. It's just incredible.
So the most on-Shazammable DJ and the most karmically respectful USB provider, Anthony Attalla, everybody.
I appreciate you guys having me. And,
no, we appreciate you joining us, man. I mean, this is kind of missing in the space right now of like, an approach with DJs and producers and, lighting visuals and Pasquales and promoters and things like that. So.
Totally. Yeah, man. I'm honored that you guys thought of me. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
This is the Superstar Diaries podcast. Like and subscribe.